chaos.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Myth Refreshed podcast, where I invite you to meet some of the amazing guests that are going to be gracing our stage on March the 18th at the Omnibus Theatre in Clapham. Tickets are available now. It's an evening which will cross cultures and artistic disciplines to resurrect the power of myth and to reawaken the hero in you. And I want to introduce you to Oduenyi, quick bio. Oduenyi is a non-binary Nigerian Irish artist based in London. They are a trained actor and have skills in movement, theatre, writing, and poetry. They also enjoy photography and cinematography. They have a keen interest in activism and stand for equity. They're also featuring in Roundhouse Poetry Collective, Imagine What the Future Could Hold for Us as individuals and as society, and supposedly working on various documentary projects as well. Welcome to Myth Refreshed. How are you, my love?
I'm feeling great. That was a really nice, way to open it.
It's a room full of greatness, babes. I mean, you're going to stand here and just be like, yes, I know, I shine bright. And that's how we found you. You. So tell us a bit about, just because we met at the Ori Jam.
Yes.
You are fantastic.
Thank you. You're fantastic. That's the whole reason why I wanted to even just come into the space, because I remember I came to Ori Jam one time before then, and I was like, wow, this is really good. And I was like, okay, next time I'm just going to perform a poem. I didn't see anybody do poetry, but I was like, let me just do it. And you were on the mic first, and you were just freestyling, but the way that you freestyle a lot of the time can feel even like an immersive, theatrical kind of experience. So I felt like you had probably a drama background and things like that, and I have a theater background, so it's that's how I also like to perform. So I was like, my people.
But it's almost like you've always been there, because
really?
Yeah, you are such a phenomenon.
Thank you.
You really are a phenomenon. So I wanted to know a little bit about where you are from.
I am from, my heritage is Nigerian, so my parents, my family, all from Nigeria. And then where I was where I grew up and where I'm born is Ireland. So it's right across the sea. A lot of people hear this accent. They're like, "You're Canadian." No, you're American. I'm like, I'm Irish. Reverse cardinal.
I thought you were American when
I know, but everybody does. And I think that one thing, especially with me, as someone who's neurodiverse and carries this accent, and even I feel like this ties in with me being queer as well. It's when you grow up outside of what you feel societal norms are, you start to behave in queer ways in different kind of ways. So even my accent, I feel like it's queer, because growing up in Ireland, everybody would be like, "You're not from here." Going to England, I'm not from here. When I go to America, they're like, "You're Irish." I'm like, "Wow,
no way."
So I feel like it's this thing of having a global accent type of thing, and it's now when I see there's apps like TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, we're hearing all these different kind of accents all the time. We're watching podcasts, listening to people, music that's globally, especially even in America, that kind of music that comes over here, and then people start adopting those accents. So it's slowly, I notice it because I live in Lucian. I hear some people speaking in African American vernacular, and it's okay, you guys are starting to get this little American accent, and it's interesting. It's accents are no longer just set to regions anymore. They're mixing, and London is such an example of that. Accents will always change, and I find that interesting as a queer person, because I feel like it's a thing of sometimes you are almost ahead of your time with this whole way that you express, because the majority of people in the world, slowly the borders start to blur, and lines start to blur with that, and people just start doing what human beings do, and we socialize,
And you're holding so many flags. I mean,
yeah, for everybody.
I know you're at the front. You're marching, creating the future, and just saying, this is the new way of everything.
Of everything. And I feel like that's beautiful. And even going to spaces like the one that you curate, Ori Jam, and it's just I see so many people who are Black, brown, queer, like poets, musicians, guitarists. Like it's just a space where artisticness is pushed and then
It's
individuality is pushed, you know? Like,
yes.
and that's
Be
what
different,
students,
be you.
That's what people need.
Right, right. So, watching you perform is a really magical experience, which is why I'm so excited that the Myth Refresh guys are going to be able to experience some of your presence. And I just wanted to know, there seems to be a deep-rooted spiritualness. I'm assuming it's not an act.
No.
It could be, which is also amazing. Yeah, but where does that come from you? Where do you dig into?
So like I think about I want to say 3 years ago or maybe even 4, I started to get into like African spirituality and like Nigerian spirituality because I'm Nigerian and like I'm of the Igbo tribe, so it's like this, a place, Southern Africa, like is a big place. So, it's people who, even within Nigeria, we've been heavily oppressed. There was a genocide against Igbo people in like 1970s, and that was 1969. That was one of the first civil wars in Africa ever, like in the modern age. And then after that, you saw things like Rwanda. You see things like Somalian civil war. Like it started civil wars everywhere else because Nigeria is the most populated country in Africa. So what people learned is that if you can kill people and the British government or Western governments back it for money, that like it's kind of like no one will stop you from doing what you're doing in civil wars. So that sent a message to everywhere. So I feel like a lot of things that happen in Nigeria are so influential to African politics and global politics and even just global capitalism. And like Igbo people are a lot of the forefront of like things that happened in the past and present with oppression in Nigeria. And then with our spirituality, it's a big part of that because after colonization, we lost a lot of things. Like we were forced out of being like in tune with our spirituality. And I think that like as a result, it's now a lot of people who are like Nigerian or Christian and all that kind of stuff. But for even within like our what we see as Igbo culture, Igbo people are known as the most rebellious people. And like there's this thing that happened in America during slavery, and it was called the B.l.o.n.d.e, where slaves walked off a ship, held hands, and drowned themselves. And that was an act of rebellion. Those people were all Igbo, and so it's like a thing where Igbo people within our tradition, it's you have your chi, and your chi is your own spiritual self, your destiny, and your wisdom, and you hold that within you. So your chi, we call God Chineke, so it's chi and eke, so it's like your destiny and like the world. So you are part of God. So even when people were enslaved, they knew that they were gods. So it's like Igbo people were really hard to turn into a slave because they knew that they were not slaves. So it's very like that's one thing that when I looked into my spirituality, I was like, this is beautiful. Like I grew up Catholic. Like Roman Catholic.
Oh, darling, how different.
It was so different. And then my dad started practicing Igbo spirituality.
Oh, wow.
And then,
so that's quite rebellious in itself.
It
now.
was.
Wow.
And it's like he grew up like Roman Catholic because, colonization and like really strict kind of Catholic. And then he started practicing Igbo spirituality and he didn't tell me about it. And then I was just like, I don't really believe in this Catholic thing anymore. So I was like, okay, let me just start looking into things all by myself. And then I found out one day he was like, yeah, I practice Igbo spirituality. And he was like, I'm not trying to like influence you because I know that you're probably still Christian. And in my head I was like, I'm not Christian,
Yeah.
So we slowly just started to mesh. It was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And we started to mesh, and now it's like it's so great for me because I have roots from. I know a lot of people, especially in London, who are Caribbean or African. They don't really know much about their heritage, so it's hard to find these roots. So for me, I'm very blessed to have a dad that's from old generation. Like he was alive during Nigerian Civil War and things like that, and like he is able to help me with roots and spirituality. And then I'm also able to just help myself and know more about myself and know more about like spiritual healing and just stillness. And I think that it's honestly changed how I navigate life because it's not about being conventional. It's not about any of those things. It's about what feels right for your spirit and what is your spirit saying with you. So it's about like connecting with yourself and knowing when your body is talking to you and when your heart and your mind's talking to you and feeling fulfilled in that way. And I think that with poetry, it's really beautiful for me because I've understood like a lot of spirituality is honestly metaphors. It is like poetry. So when I perform poetry, it's all these metaphors to me that say things in ways that is healing for me and also can be healing for other people. And it feels like I don't want to ever write poems that are just sad or just heartbreaking. It has to feel healing. So nothing I write I feel like is destructive. It has to be constructive in some way. So it's like when I give that to people in the audience, it just makes me happy to be able to speak those what I feel like are truths, and then also it almost feels a bit like a prayer for me. So that's kind of my links within spirituality and poetry. It's like all of that to me is just healing. And that's what I want to approach art with because that's what's real for me, you know?
You've just made me so emotional. You speak so much truth that the world needs to hear. So at the event on March 18th, what can we expect from you? I mean, clearly it's gonna. I'm feeling the healing. There's gonna be poetry. Is there going to be this fusion? I mean, you was talking about the rituals that come from Nigeria. Does your practice involve kind of incorporating those rituals, or is it just it's there, ever present?
I feel like it's ever present, you know, but that's a great idea, you know. But I feel like definitely ever present. I might incorporate some instruments. I'm still thinking about that, but I have like the idea for the piece I want to do for the Myth Refresh. Like it's called Do You Believe in Reincarnation? So it's about just exploration of self, but not this particular exploration of myself. It's exploration of just the idea of self, and it's about there's this one line in it and I think this speaks for me to it speaks to mental health, it speaks to identity and all of these different things. Like the line was if I am if I am a host of ancestors, how can I ever be alone? So it's like if all my ancestors live within me, then how could I ever truly be alone? Like how can I not have answers when there's so many different people with answers? And it's like that to me speaks well, and it speaks to like these questions of self and identity. And sometimes we like since we live in major cities and in the world of like over information, we can feel lost and all of that. But I feel like when it comes to identity, you can very much look within yourself, because if you look outwards, it's like you can be looking forever because it just feels like a consistent thing that's always everything's always happening at once. And what can you truly hold on to? But you can always hold on to yourself, and I feel like that's what that piece like means for me. So I'd love to. I'm just excited to share. Honestly,
like, you
don't
know how excited I am, darling. I'm like, are you joking? Come on. What can we expect from you in 2023? I know you've got your fingers in lots of pies, and so you should. You've got shit to do.
I don't know. Like I feel like what can you expect from me? I'd like the question. What I'm hearing is what can I even expect from myself in 2023? You know, I feel like I want to do a lot, but not view as a lot. I think right now I feel busy, but at the same time I feel like I want to do a lot of things, but at the same time more I'm focused on like a growth of self. But I feel like artistically, like I want to finish editing a really great documentary I'm doing with Queer Rave, and it's about the building of the very first black built, organized, completely black queer sound system, and it's the first one being built in London, and it's by this lovely person called Zulu, and they've put together a team of like trans and queer people who have never built before, who've learned to build from scratch. And I've been documenting, and these people are like carpenters, and I'm like, wow, like you guys just taught yourselves how to do this. Like just a bunch of like cunty, like bad bitches with long nails, and they're like, zzz. I'm like, whoa, you know. So that's what I'm like filming right now, and then I'm going to film a documentary on like queer, mostly like black people within London, and what do they experience, or how do they navigate just life. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with them being artists, but just like life, like what do you feel like on an everyday basis. And that's what I'm making with my great friend B, who's an amazing cinematographer. And I also want to like put on like plays and make like some poetry nights for like queer and marginalized people, which I'm going to ask you to be coming to. Like,
Hell yeah!
yeah, so that's basically what I want to do in